Oh, I'm sorry.
Good morning. Welcome to Bellingham Unitarian Fellowship. All who come in the spirit of goodwill are welcome here. If you are new today, there is a card in the pew in front of you that you could fill out and place in the offering basket so that we could make contact with you. And all are invited to the coffee hour after service. And you could, if you're new, choose to use a red cup, which would help us connect with you. There is such chaos, suffering, and division in our world right now. I always find it helps me to focus more and more on gratitude. We gather today on land that was the traditional home of the Coast Salish peoples. We owe them immense gratitude. As we begin worship this morning, let's take a minute to think about what we are grateful for about this place where we live. And I'd welcome a few lovely shout outs of what you thought of. What are you grateful for about this land this morning? Pardon? Oh, this is lovely. Thank you. My name is Stephanie Rains. My pronouns are she, her. I am your celebrant today, and I'm grateful for the abundance of flowers and the summer harvest that has already begun, especially raspberries. And my dear partner, Lynn, who's been working very hard to get water to garden plants that struggle in the heat in small enough amounts that they will survive without wasting any of it. And I learned this morning, walking in with Peter, that there's a no water on Mondays policy in Bellingham, and an every other day watering based on your even or uneven address. And I don't know which is which, but you could pick one and it would be an improvement, and that seemed to me a lovely example of something we could all do as part of caring for this place that we love. There is so much to be grateful for. Thank you for being here today. And thank you to all the people, visible and behind the curtain or in the back room, who make these services happen. Barbara Wells Tenhove is the coordinator of summer services, and she has done incredible organization to make them smooth and effective. Our summer services will be led by many different people, and today we're lucky to have Peter Luton as our main speaker. Peter is a retired Unitarian minister and a member of this congregation. He helps to care for the grounds around the church. I hear he mows lawns. I have a couple of announcements, and then we'll move into our prelude. There is a potluck next Sunday, July 21st, right after the service, and you are invited to bring a dish to share. Our monthly Taizé services are continuing through the summer, and they are on the first Monday of August and the first Monday of September, even though it's Labor Day weekend. And they start at 7 p.m. in the sanctuary or on Zoom. Another person I'm very grateful for this morning is Melanie Reich, who is our pianist this morning, and she is going to play our prelude, and I invite you to take a deep breath and settle into your seat a little more comfortably. Grab a cushion if you need one, and prepare for service. What's that?
It's Melanie Reek. And this prelude is not exactly a relaxing, restful one necessarily. It tells a story. And it's from the musical The Roar of the Grease Paint, the Smell of the Crowd. And here's just a little bit of the story. There's always a joker in the pack. There's always a lonely clown. The poor laughing fool falls on his back, and everyone laughs when he's down. There's always a joker. That's a rule. But fate deals a hand, and I see the joker is me.
It's a pleasure and a delight to be with you this morning. Appreciate the invitation. I would have been here anyway. I'm interested in what the speaker says or might say, and often I come regardless of who the speaker is. And always I come because I need something. Maybe it's the grounding of just being here on a regular basis. Maybe it's because it was a particularly difficult week. This has been a particularly difficult week for me, and that makes it all the better that I'm here. I chose the opening hymn, number 360, 2 weeks ago because it's a great hymn. I like it, and it's all wonderful. It feels especially pertinent and appropriate today. So I invite you not just to sing the hymn, but to attend to it, listen to it, hear it, and feel it. Carrie will lead us in hymn number 360 in the Gray Hymn Book.
Here we have gathered, gathered side by side. Circumvention, come and step inside. May all who seek here find a kindly word. May all who speak in feel they have been heard. Sing now together this our heart's song. Here we have gathered all to celebrate days of our lifetime. Let us celebrate. We all are ages, women, children, men, infants and sages, sharing what we can. Sing now together this our heart's song. Life has its battles, sorrows and regret, but in the shadows let us not forget. We who are gathered know each other's pain. Kindness can heal us as we give, we gain. Sing now together this our heart's song.
Good people, I needed that hymn. Somber, steady, resolute. Because we gather this morning, as we gather this morning, we have a great need. A need to sing our heart's song. A song of love, compassion, justice, inclusive diversity, and peace. And we surely need the kindness and love that heals. Yesterday's political violence in Butler, Pennsylvania, tore deeply into the fabric of our nation, our democracy, our very ability to live peaceably with one another. We are grateful that former President Trump is okay, and we are saddened that one of the rally attendees has died and 2 were seriously injured. And I grieve that the shooter wasted his life. We know that violence solves nothing, and in fact, it makes things worse, maybe much worse. We reject violence, and we ought not to tolerate it in our lives or in our shared national life. It goes against the very warp and woof of our deepest commitments and our most cherished values. And yet we must recognize that yesterday's attack was not only on Donald Trump and our democracy, but upon us all. And it speaks to a corrosive fear and ill will that steams along beneath the surface, erupting more and more often. Steams along sometimes in us. And here we are, gathered to worship. In our time together, may we acknowledge our own and each other's tender pain. May we hold it gently. May our pain soften in the presence of a shared love and kindness that we here abound with. May we find comfort in community and renewed hope through our shared faith in the gift of life. Here may our courage be emboldened and our wisdom widened, so that we may truly become the best people that we can be. For then, beloveds, our words will be true, our deeds will be just, our compassion will be unfiltered, and our strength will be in the love that heals, unites, and transforms all beings and all things. This I pray in the name of every child, of every age, in every land. Each is the hope and the light of the world. May it be. Amen.
Our theme today is What's Your Story? 2 Sundays ago, as part of Buff's Pride service, Lynn and I told stories of being a lesbian family 40 years ago. The responses we've received have been so affirming. Thank you. The invitation to tell those stories is still warming my heart. We all have stories to tell that give breadth and depth to our humanity. Inviting someone to tell their story is an example of love in action. For our chalice lighting this morning, I want to read a short passage from an old favorite book by Barry Lopez called Crow and Weasel. The stories people tell have a way of taking care of them. If stories come to you, care for them and learn to give them away where they are needed. Sometimes a person needs a story more than food to stay alive. That is why we put these stories in each other's memory. This is how people care for themselves. Please join me as we recite our covenant, which is in your order of service.
Love
Is
is the spirit of this
fellowship, and service gives it life. Celebrating our diversity and joined by a quest for truth, we work for peace and honor all creation. This is our covenant.
I am not a liar, but I do tell stories, and they're all true. Our eldest son, Colin, was fascinated. He loved trains. We still, 33 years later, have great boxes of Brio track and Brio trains and the whole Thomas the Tank Engine stock of cars and engines in our basement. Who knows what'll come of it? It's worth something. It's worth a memory. At any rate, years ago, when we lived in Bellevue, we learned that in Pioneer Square in Seattle, there is a greasy diner, which I love, that served all its meals on train cars. Little train cars would drive around this diner and deliver the food, so we had to go. We invited Colin's friend Nathan to come with, and we got to the diner, and it was fantastic. It really was. We sat down in a booth, and along the outside and winding through the booths, there was this train with big flat cars, and it was delivering all sorts of things in plastic baskets with that red and white checked paper, and it had grease fried this and fat fried that, and it was just fantastic. There were trains all going all around up above. You could watch it. It was just great. The waitress came and took our orders. We ordered our food. We sat down and just drank in the atmosphere. And then across from us, a young couple and their son, who was maybe 5 or 6, a little younger than Colin, came in. And the waitress came up to them, and she took their order, and they ordered for themselves and for their kid. And then the amazing thing happened. The waitress turned to the kid and said, "What do you want?" And the kid lit up, and he says, "I want a hot dog with ketchup." And she said, "Anything else on that?" "And mustard," he said. Right away, she chirped, and she left. And you could just feel this chill come over that whole diner, right? The grease congealed in the air. And the parents had this hard face. And then the little boy turned and said, "Did you see that? She thinks I'm real." Who doesn't want to be real? Who doesn't want to be seen, not invisible, but really seen for who you are? Your beautiful, flawed, brilliant, sometimes thoughtless, wonderful self. Who doesn't want to be real, seen, affirmed? I do. I want to be seen. I want to be affirmed. That was a wonderful trip to the diner. It's not there anymore, but the story's in me. And I remember it, and I think of it all the time. In Buddhism, there's the tradition of greeting and parting by saying namaste, namaste. It's a complex theological structure. But what namaste basically means is, I see you. I see you. Not who I think you should be, not who I want you to be, not who I'm afraid you are, but I see you. Here at Buff, when we sing our children out, we say, I see you. By singing, we hold you in our love as you go. So let us hold our children, all children, of every age, of every land, in our hearts, and sing. We hold you in our hearts as you go. May your heart beat as twice as you go. To nurture the spark of your precious life, we hold you in our heart as you go. This is a story I found in an essay by Scott Russell Sanders. He's a sort of a personal essayist. He writes essays about his life. But this is more of a story, and I can't tell it. I need to read it. Spanish Lessons. An American couple in their early 20s, poor graduate students traveling on a shoestring, were staying in a shabby hotel in Madrid. They knew no one in the city and knew just enough Spanish to order meals and ask directions. They often asked directions, but they had so little money that they didn't need to order meals very often. Instead, they lived on cheese and bread and peppers and cherries. Married only 2 years, instead of going out at night to shows or clubs, they lay in bed talking about what they had seen and done that day and reading Don Quixote. On their first night in the cheap hotel, as they lay reading with their heads propped against the plywood wall, they heard from the next room the sounds of the door opening and feet shuffling across the carpet. Someone just beyond the flimsy wall had begun clearing his throat and muttering Spanish in a quavery voice that led them to guess that their neighbor must be an elderly gentleman. Soon they heard the clank and hiss of his dinner preparations, soup boiling on a hot plate, the clink of a spoon against a bowl, then strenuous slurping. When their neighbor began brushing his teeth and gargling, the husband and wife closed Don Quixote, closed their eyes, and set off to sleep. Sleep was hard to find because within minutes their neighbor began snoring. The sound reminded the wife of pumping water at her grandmother's well, and it reminded the husband of shoveling gravel into the back of a pickup truck. But eventually, after much tossing on damp sheets, they drifted off. Along in the small hours of the morning, however, they awoke suddenly to shouts of their neighbor. With their sketchy Spanish, they could make out the words, "Police! Help! Murder!" yelled over and over again. The neighbor began pounding on the wall at the head of the bed, and the husband's heart pounded in his chest. He sat up. What to do, he wondered. Find his way over there in pajamas and run into who knows what kind of mess? Or lie there while an old man was being beaten or strangled? Torn and trembling as though the attacker had him by the throat, he lurched out of bed and stood on the creaky floorboards. "We should do something," said the wife. I know. The husband wanted to go and help, but he was afraid of leaving his wife alone, afraid of entering into a dim corridor in a sleazy hotel in a strange city where he didn't speak the language, afraid of the darkness. His own panting was almost as loud in his ears as the old man's shouting. Unable to move, the husband suddenly thought, maybe he's having a nightmare. Quickly, he said his thought aloud. "You think so? It has to be a nightmare. But if it isn't, it is. It must be." While they hesitated, the yelling died down. The thrashing stopped. And presently the old man's snores resumed. The whole disturbance lasted no more than a minute, but an hour later the husband's racing heart still kept him awake. Next morning, over a breakfast of strawberries and rolls, the wife said, "What if he really had been in trouble?" "He wasn't in trouble," the husband insisted. The following night, the yelling awoke them again, but this time the husband did not get out of bed. By the third night, he only rolled over grumpily when he heard the shouts, and on the fourth night, their last in Spain, he squeezed a pillow to his ears and promptly went back to sleep. Months and years later, he would remember that scene in the Madrid hotel. Remember the plywood and the throbbing against his head. Remember the fear. Above all, he would remember hesitating while a stranger in the next room begged for help. The memory stayed with him. The memory stayed with him as a story, with setting, characters, and voices and tumultuous feelings all bound into a narrative. The story would often come to him when he looked at his wife or his daughter or his son, when he spoke with his father or mother on the phone, when he visited a friend, when he thought of anyone whom he loved getting hurt. What he felt when the story seized him was not so much shame as a burst of clarity about who he was and who he wished to become. Over the years, he would keep on hearing calls for help, some of which he would answer and many of which he would ignore. But even when he failed, the memory of that night in the Madrid hotel helped him to see his failure clearly. And from that seeing, he gained courage to try again. I walk around town. I see people without shelter. I see people yelling and gesticulating to no one in particular. I hear of house fires and GoFundMe appeals and the endless stream of solicitations, political, social justice, environmental, social service. In the grocery store and on the street, I encounter parents at their wits' end. I too flash on my failures to respond. What should I do? What will I do? And the memory gives me a little bit of clarity about the person that I want to be. Let us join together in singing hymn number 34 in the Gray Hymn Book. Thank you.
Please stand as you're willing and able. Always speak with kindness,
The stories people tell have a way of taking care of them. If stories come to you, care for them and learn to give them away where they are needed. Sometimes a person needs a story more than food to stay alive. That is why we put these stories in each other's memory This is how people care for themselves. We're going to have a few moments of silence, and I invite you to ponder a story from your own life or a story that you've heard that comes to you this morning that has been nourishing, important, meaningful. Thank you. That's probably not enough time to recreate the whole story, but maybe it's a beginning to thinking about an important story. And I'd invite you at coffee hour to consider inviting someone to tell you just a little bit of the story that came to them. That's part of how we learn to connect with each other in beloved community. This morning, we have a guest speaker talking about Lydia Place, which is a fabulous local resource that has been part of our program here at Buff, where once a month we take our offering up for a nonprofit. And Lydia Place is doing wonderful things to help homelessness for families. So Tally Rabatin is going to tell us a story or some bit of something that is current at Lydia Place. Tally.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tally Rabatin. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Community Engagement Director at Lydia Place. Thank you so much for including me today and for the continued partnership in our work to end family homelessness in our community. Over the years, you all have provided critical funds to expand our programs and opened these doors to us for meetings and trainings. Thank you for all you are doing to create welcoming and belonging in our community. Today, Lydia Place is serving close to 300 families at any given time. For those of you who aren't familiar with our work, our mission is to disrupt the cycle of homelessness and promote sustained independence for current and future generations. In short, our goal is that the children in our programs today, which number close to 450, will be the last in their families to experience housing insecurity. At Lydia Place, we believe that the best way to eliminate homelessness is to look beyond short-term solutions and focus on breaking the generational cycle of poverty. To do this, we believe that housing is the first step, and we practice a housing-first model. A recent study in the journal Pediatrics proved that children who experience any bout of unstable housing had a significantly higher increase in poor health outcomes as they aged. So it is our goal to get children sheltered first. Our 35 years of experience also tells us that housing is just the first step, and families need additional wraparound services to work through trauma and have better outcomes. At Lydia Place, we've created robust housing case management, including prevention as a housing intervention, low barrier mental health counseling for both parents and children, and parent support specialists that foster belonging and support the parent-child bond. This holistic approach works, and 89% of our families move on to stable, safe, and healthy housing. I recently had the chance to see this generational impact through a student who joined our team as an intern. During their exit interview, they shared that they had once been a family in our programs. She shared with me how significant it was to feel safe and stabilized, how important it was to her mother that Lydia Place had been her village. She graduated from Western this last month and plans to continue her education and pursue her master's in social work. Her goal would be to join our staff team and, from her words, continue to help make positive impact and be a ripple of good in our community. And this is just one experience of thousands that we've had the privilege to be a part of their story. With a current coordinated entry waitlist of 207 families, we ask for your continued support to fund these critical programs, volunteer with us, use your voice for advocacy, and help us continue to invest in families. I appreciate you having me here today, and Stephanie asked us to think about what we were grateful for, and I am truly grateful to be a part of this community and to have neighbors like you all that care so deeply for our community's children, so thank you.
I feel grateful that we have that kind of commitment in the community. The offertory or the collection will go to Lydia Place unless you designate on a check or whatever that it's going to Buff. So would the ushers come forward? And we have a lovely piece for our offertory. So Jane is going to introduce it.
A bit about this aria. It's a story from the opera La Gioconda. An older blind woman is falsely accused and then threatened by a mob. A stranger, a young woman who is the wife of a high government official, passes by and saves the blind woman's life. In gratitude, she sings, "Are you an angel or a woman?" Thanks in gratitude to you, my chains are broken. May my blessing be upon you, and please accept my rosary as a gift. Ora da me non partasi, da me non portasi, senza un pietoso don. No, no, a te questo rosario, che le preghiere aduna. Te lo porgo accetalo, italo fortuna. Sulla tua testa vigili la mia benedizione. Sulla tua testa, sulla tua testa vigili la mia benedizione. Sulla tua testa vigili la mia
Bill Harley is a children's book writer and songwriter for children, and he knows full well that we are all still children deep inside. And I just think no matter how mature and grizzled we may be, there's nothing like a good children's story. This is Sarah's story. As the kids were preparing to leave their classroom that day, the teacher said, "Oh, I want to tell you before you go that tomorrow morning I want you each to come to class with a story to tell us. So think of a story and come back, and tomorrow morning we can all share our stories." And one kid said, oh, I know this really scary story. It's really, really scary. Can I tell it? Can I tell it? She said, yes, you can tell us that story tomorrow. And another boy said, I know this funny story. It is so funny. It is so funny. Can I tell it? Can I tell it? Yes, you can tell us that story tomorrow. But Sarah didn't say either of those things. She says, oh, I don't have a story. I don't know any stories. Why, Sarah, everyone has a story. You can think of a story. I don't know any story. Maybe your mother. Ask your mother when you get home. Maybe she can help you think of a story. Oh, well, as Sarah walked home from school, because she walked to and from school, she tried to think of a story. She couldn't. She knew she couldn't, so she didn't. When she got home, she waited and waited, and when Mom came home, She ran outside to Mom as she got out of the car and said, Mom, I have to have a story and I don't have any stories to tell tomorrow. What can I do? Help me. Tell me a story. And her mother was very tired. Well, Sarah, what about Goldilocks and the Three Bears? Oh, Ma, come on. Everybody knows that story. Come on. Well, when you were a little girl, you really liked Three Little Pigs. Oh, Ma, get with the program, she says. And her mother got mad. She says, well, if you don't want my help, then you'll just have to think of a story yourself. Oh, thanks, Mom. Thanks for your help. Well, she tried to think of a story all night. She tried, but she couldn't. She knew she couldn't, so she didn't. Time for bed. Maybe I can remember my dream, she thought. So she went to bed. Woke up. Oh, I can't remember my dreams. I can't make a story out of that. All through breakfast, she tried to remember or think of a story. She couldn't. She knew she couldn't, so she didn't. On the way to school, walking to school, she tried to think of a story, and nothing was coming. She got to the corner, and the light was red, so she had to stop, because you have to stop for red lights. And she was trying to think of a story, and nothing was happening. And then she heard, hey, Sarah. She looked around, and there was nobody around. Sarah, down here. And she looked down, and at her feet was an ant standing on its back legs. Sarah, follow me, come on. What? I can't follow you. I'm late for school. Come on. And ant started to go off down on the sidewalk. And she looked around, and there was nobody around, so she decided to follow the ant. And she followed the ant all the way down the sidewalk, well, halfway down the sidewalk, until they got to the ant hill. And it was in a crack. You know how ants like to build their hills in a crack there, and there's this little crack, and the ant says, come on, and scoots down the hole. Oh, I said, so what am I going to do? I'm a big girl. I can't fit in the anthole. And she looked at it, and it was a little bit larger than antholes usually are. And she thought, well, maybe I'll try and put my toe in, and then I'll at least show that I tried. So she took off her socks and her shoes. She put them on the grass right next to the sidewalk, and she took her big toe, and she put it into that hole able to get just a little bit of her toe in the hole. So she twisted, and she wiggled, and she twisted, and she twisted more, and she got her whole big toe in the hole. And then she went down on a knee, and she really went to it. She got the next toe, and then the next toe, and then the next toe, and the next toe. And she had all her toes in that hole. And then she decided to really go for it. And she wiggled, and she twisted, and she twisted, and she wiggled, and she got her whole foot in the anthole. Then she got her other foot and got the big toe in. Oh, she got the big toe, and then the next toe, and the next toe, and the next toe. And she had both feet in the anthole. And then she really got to work, and she was wiggling and twisting and wiggling and twisting until she got all the way up to her waist in the anthole. She put her fingers down there and then began to pull up. Sarah was in the anthole. There were thousands of ants swarming all over the place going, boo, 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 boo. She didn't know what they were saying, but she's not an ant. And then the ant who went down the hole first says, come on, Sarah. And he takes off down the passageway this way. So what is she going to do? She follows the ant, and there's thousands of ants. Boo, 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 boo. She had no idea what they were saying, but she's not an ant. They went down deeper and deeper, down the passageway, and they came into a little room, and there was the queen ant. She knew it was the queen ant because she had a crown on it. It said queen. Oh, Sarah, I am so glad you are here, she said. I want to have my babies, and I need some honey bread. Do you have any honey bread? No, said Sarah. All I got is this peanut butter sandwich. Oh, that won't do at all. well, I can't help. Oh, Sarah, you have to help me. I want to have my babies and I need my honey. And the queen started to cry, and Sarah hated it when people cried. So she said, okay, I'll try. Great, hurry up. And Sarah took off back up the long passage, and the ants were all going, but she didn't know what they were saying because she's not an ant. And she got to the little pinhole that was the hole that she'd got in, and she said, how did I do that? What am I going to do? She put her finger up in her on finger, and then she got to both the hands and the finger. And she wiggled and twisted, and finally she was out of that hole. There were her shoes. But where am I going to get honey? There's no stores around here. And then there was a bee flying over her head. And the bee came down and landed on her nose. Hi, Sarah, said the bee. Hi, said Sarah. Bee flew down. Climb on. What? Climb on. I can't climb on you. I'm a big girl. You're a little tiny. Climb on. This is ridiculous, thought Sarah. But she put one foot on one side of the bee and one foot on the other side. Now, off they took. They went down the sidewalk. Oh, she was screaming. It was so exciting. Across the street, flying past the school. Hi, she said to the principal. He didn't see her. They went across an open field, and she saw that they were going to this big beehive and a big tree, and oh no! They were in the hive. There were thousands of bees all around going. She didn't know what they were saying, but she's not a bee. The bee went over to the honeycomb, grabbed a little bit of the wax, pulled and made it pop it out, and the honey started to drip out of the honeycomb. And Sarah, what would she do? She put out her hands to catch. That's all she had. All she had was her hands. She put her hands out, and the honey flowed into her hands. And it flowed over her hands, and it flowed through her fingers. That's enough, she said. And the bee took the wax, plugged up the honeycomb, went over to Sarah. Climb on. Oh no, said Sarah, but she did it. She put one foot on this side and one foot on. Out the hive they went. Oh, she said, flying along, holding on with her knees. Down across the field, right up to the school. High, past the principal, he didn't see her. To the corner, across the street, back to the anthill. Put her down and just went. Oh, she looked. She had honey all over. Well, she put her big toe in, and then her next toe, and her next toe, and her next toe, and her foot, and she was getting good at it by now. And then her whole other foot, and then she wiggled, she was in. Down in thousands of ants, still going, bloop, bloop, bloop. She didn't know what they were saying, but she's not an ant. She ran down the passageway to the queen's room, and here, I've got the honey, she said to the queen. Oh, Sarah, that's wonderful. Where's the bread? I don't have any bread, said Sarah. Well, I need bread. I want to have my 1,000 babies, and I can't have them unless you get me my honey bread. And Sarah says, look, I got this peanut butter sandwich. Let's put the honey on it, and that'll work. Oh, I don't think so, said the queen. Why not? I don't like peanut butter. Have you ever tried it? No. How do you know you don't like it? I don't like the way it looks. Well, you have to try it. One bite. One bite. It's the rule, she said. So she took the honey and she put it all over the peanut butter sandwich, and it was this big, gooey, sticky mess. And she held it out to the queen. And the queen was it's the rule, one bite, said Sarah. So the queen reached out and took a little piece of it Sarah, this is fantastic. I'm going to name all my babies after you. I'm going to name them Sarah 1, Sarah 2, Sarah 3, Sarah 4. Sarah said, what are you doing? She says, I'm counting to 1,000. It'll only take a minute. I'm late for school, said Sarah. I gotta go. Sarah 5. I gotta go. Sarah said, okay, bye. Sarah, and then off Sarah goes. Back up the passageway. All the ants are saying, she doesn't know what they're saying, but she's not an ant. Back to the ant hole, gets her fingers out, gets her arms out, gets her whole self out. There are her shoes. She puts on her socks, and then she puts on her shoes, and she runs to the corner, and the light's green, so she goes right across and then down the street to the school, goes right past the school, in the school, right past the principal's office. Hi! He doesn't see her. All the way into her classroom. Sarah, says her teacher, you're late. Oh, I'm sorry. I got held up. And the teacher said, well, everybody else has told their story. Do you want to tell us your story now? Sarah says, oh, I don't have a story. And the teacher says, why not? And Sarah said, well, I tried to think of a story on the way home, but I couldn't. And then I asked my mom for help, and she said, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And I said that was dumb, and she got mad at me. And then I couldn't think of one after dinner. And then I didn't remember my dreams. And I was walking to school trying to think of a story, but I couldn't. I knew I couldn't, so I didn't. And I didn't think of a story. And I'm waiting at the corner because the light's red, because you got to stop at a red light. And then I hear this, hey, Sarah, there's this little ant that needs my help. So I help the ant, and I follow him all to the ant hill, and I put in my big toe, and then my next toe, and my next toe, and my next toe, and my next toe. Pretty soon I'm in there, and there's thousands of ants swarming all over. I don't know what they're saying. We go down, and I come to a little room, and there's the queen. I know she's queen because she's got a crown on which says queen. She says, got any honey bread? I said, I don't have any honey bread. She says, I need honey bread. She started crying. I said, okay, I'll try. She goes, runs back out. I get out of the hole. I go, and I find, then the bee picks me up, and he flies me across the road, in front of the school. Hi, I say to the principal. The principal doesn't see me. We go zoom down this field into the hive. She pulled it up. I got honey all over my hands. I don't know what to do. And then we fly back past the school. Hi to the principal. He doesn't see what I'm doing. Down to the corner. Boom, boom, boom. Puts me down at the anthill. I get into the anthill. And then going down the long passage back to the room. I don't know. I'm not an ant. And then the queen says, oh, great, I have all this, you're right, I saw it here, and here's the honey. And she says, where's the bread? And I says, I don't have any bread. She says, I need the bread. I said, let's a peanut butter sandwich. She says, I don't like peanut butter. I says, have you tried it? She says, no. I says, well, you got to try it. It's the rule. And so the queen tries it. She says she's going to name all her babies after me. Sarah 1, Sarah 2, says, I got to go. I say, Sarah 3, Sarah 4. She says, I got to go. And she says, okay, bye, 5. And I run down the hallway. I don't know what they're saying. And then I get them out of it, and I put on my shoes and my socks, and I run to the corner, and it's a green light I come across. I run all to the school. I run into the school, run past the principal's office. I say hi. He doesn't see me. And I come in, and I come here. And that's why I don't have a story. And all the kids say, no. And Sarah says, it's not a story, it's true. And Sarah's teacher smiles and says, Sarah, that's the best story we've heard all day. I don't like to moralize, so I'm not going to tell you what the meaning of the story is. But I will invite you to join in singing hymn number 16, "'Tis the Gift to be Simple."
Please stand as you're willing and able.
Go now in peace. Go for peace. For those of you who see God, may God travel with you. For those who seek to embrace life, may life return your affection. And for those who seek a better path, may a way be found and the courage to take it, step by step. Blessed be, shalom, salam, and amen. Let us gather round for our circle round singing.